All right, so this next unit's all about proportions and ratios. So let's first go over some definitions. So a ratio is simply a comparison. So it's a comparison of two values. And we can write that three different ways. We could write it using the word two. We could write it using a colon, which looks like that, or we could write it as a fraction. This is going to be the most common way we write that, okay? Okay, so yeah, we're just comparing two things, like 3 apples to 4 oranges would be an example, right? So I use the word two to compare them. Okay, let's talk about a rate. A rate is kind of special. So it's a ratio in which the compared values have different units. So let's go back and give you some examples. An example of a ratio is like 3 oranges to 2 oranges. Like he ate 3 oranges for breakfast and I ate 2 oranges for breakfast. Whereas a ratio is like, a rate is like I ate 3 oranges and he ate 2 bananas. So see, the first one, the red one, the ratio is the same units. They're both oranges. Whereas the rate, one's oranges and one's bananas. Okay, and then a unit rate is even more peculiar, more special. So it's a rate, so it has this 2 different units, but the denominator has a value of 1. So like instead of 3 oranges to 2 bananas, it'd be like 3 oranges to 1 banana. That would be a unit rate. All right, so let's go over some examples. The definitions matter, but they won't make sense until we start talking about things. Okay, so we want to find the rate. So remember, that means 2 different units, and we want to write it as a ratio. Okay, so we want to write it in one of these 3 ways. Okay, so let's do that then. All right, so it costs $2 to buy 12 eggs. So we just want to write that out. But we want to write it as eggs first to dollars. So we want to put the number of eggs on top, right? So I always start by writing out what they want our fraction to be. So we want eggs over dollars. And we know that because of the word two. The word two, remember, is one way to write a ratio. So if we want eggs to dollars, we have 12 eggs to $2. Okay, so let's do the next one. So we want inches to hours. So we have 26 inches in 7 hours. So again, we want inches to hours. So we want 26 inches. Don't lose your units when you write this. 7 hours. All right. So those are our rates. I want you to pause and try letter C on your own. All right, so for the first part, it says, what is the rate in miles to hours? So it'd be 300 miles to 6 hours. And then the next one says, what about the rate of hours per mile? Okay, so we had to put our hours over miles. Yes. Okay, let's talk about example 2. Let's talk about example 2. So example 2 says to find the unit rate. So remember, we want the denominator to be 1. So we want the denominator to be 1, right? Okay, so Ross can type 60 characters. And what is the unit rate of characters? 2 seconds. So we want characters over seconds. Over seconds. And we have, so we have 60 characters over those 30 seconds. Okay, but remember, we want our unit rate to be 1, so we want this to be 1 second. So we can simplify that by dividing these two values. And 60 divided by 30 is going to be 2 characters. And then we want to write that in like sentence form. So we'll say 2 characters. And I'm going to use the word per second. All right, so let's go to the next one. The next one, we want how far she can walk in 1 hour. So she walks 3/4 of a mile. So we want 3/4 over 2/5. So simplify that for me. So do that in your calculator. All right, so hopefully you got 1 7/8 of a mile to every 1 hour. So then we write that out as 1 7/8 miles per hour. All right, looking at the last one, there's a couple of typos on my screen, but hopefully not on yours. Okay, so honey lemon is 30 drops per 10-ounce bag. Cherry is 24 drops per 6-ounce bag. We want to find the unit rate of each. And then tell me which is the better deal. So we'll talk about that. So let's find the unit rate. We'll do drops per ounce. So do drops per ounce. So we have 30 drops for 10 ounces in the honey lemon, and cherry is 24 drops in 6 ounces. So now, which is the better deal? So for honey lemon, we get 3 per 1, 3 drops per ounce. And the cherry, we get 4 drops for 1 ounce, right? So all I did was do 30 divided by 10 to get 3, 24 divided by 6 to get 4. So which is the better deal? Would you want 3 drops for 1 ounce or 4? Well, hopefully you're saying 4 is the better deal, right? So cherry is the better deal. Because we're getting more bang for our buck, right? All right, so let's go to our next page. All right, so we want to find the unit rate from a graph. Okay, so Sylvia hiked the Appalachian Trail over an extended holiday weekend. She wants to determine what her unit rate of miles per hour she walked on that trip. Okay, so the first couple steps is we pick a point on the graph that falls on the line. So again, it has to fall on that line. You can choose any point, and remember, points are x comma y. So any point I'm going to choose, let's say, this point. Okay. So where that falls out is 5. So my x is 5. So it's 5, comma, and my y in between 4 and 8 is 6. So it's 5, comma 6. So that's the point I'm going to use. Now that I've used that point, I'm going to set it up as a fraction with my y over my x. And I want to simplify that fraction. So I want to simplify this 6 over 5. And it's going to be 1.2 over 1, right? And don't forget to label. And the y is miles, and the x is hours. Okay, so we found a point on the line, we set it up as a fraction, and then we simplified it, and then labeled it. Okay. All right, so that's that. I hope that was pretty straightforward. Okay, so we're going to do the same thing, but from a table. So Nate's family drove to Disney World this summer. The table below shows the number of hours they drove and the total distance they were from home. Based on the information, at what speed did they drive in miles per hour? So miles comes first, so that's your y. And then hours is going to be your x. So this is my x, and this is my y. And I know that because whatever comes first is going to be your y. Okay, so we just choose any value of tables. So we'll just go with this first one. It doesn't matter which row you choose. We set it up as a fraction. So again, inward order, since this was miles first, we'll go 90 over 2. And then we want to simplify that. So 90 over 2 is 45 over 1. And then remember, don't forget to label your answer. So this was 1 hour, and they drove 45 miles per hour. Okay? So now I want you to try example 5 on your own. So do both of those, try to find the unit rate for each. Remember, it's y over x. And to help you out, this is your x, this is your y. Okay, and it says it right here, but